Let's talk about Solomon Island, a tiny South Pacific island nation of roughly 900 islands sits across the shipping lanes connecting the United States to Asia. This tiny island nation is a very important nation from a strategic point of view. This nation played an decisive role during the World War II by opposing Japan in capturing the Australia. The Americans fought an decisive battle in Guadalcanal in the Solomon Island. So the Solomon Islands have long been strategic priority for all the Pacific countries' assets. But these assets are now in danger. But how they are facing the imminent danger in the first place? That will be our talking point of this discussion. As I said, the Solomon Island being a strategically important point, being a member of the Chinese gang, is choking everyone's asset. We need to discuss how this is happening, what the Chinese are trying to do over here, over in the Solomon Island. This is happening because the Solomon Island and China signed a controversial new security deal which will going to change everyone's components of geopolitics in that region. The deal which was drafted has been leaked on social media on March 24th. And that deal set off an immediate firestorm all across the world. This deal revealed the real Chinese attention. What the Chinese really thinking about that region. What the Chinese are planning to do about that region. What the Chinese intentions, real intentions to do the business with the Solomon Island. After drafted documents was leaked, a chorus of pleas come from domestic and international quarters requesting the Solomon Island government to step back from the deal. But the government headed by the Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare fiercely rejected all criticism, and he expressed the grave concerns about over the country's sovereignty because he believed the other countries are trying to influence the independent decision making capability of a democratic nation. Now we need to know what are the terms were there in that leaked drafted document. The new security agreement has far-reaching domestic and geopolitical implication. These two contexts are now dangerously interwoven, with the greater geopolitical context between China on the one side and Taiwan, the USA, Australia and other allies on the other side. The Solomon Islands used to have the ties with Taiwan, but since the new Prime Minister has came to the power, for the fourth time in 2019, the Solomon Islands broke the ties with Taiwan and established relationship with Beijing. The leaked draft, which had 6-article document, the defense terms and the powers that would permit the Beijing enormous inroads into the Solomon Islands. It permits China to become heavily involved in maintaining the civic order through the deployment of police, armed police, military personnel and other law enforcement officers and armed forces. This agreement will provide the consent for the Chinese naval visit on regular basis as the Chinese are doing in Djibouti. We do not know whether it is truth or the rumors, but some news are there that the Solomon Island gave the island of the Tulagi to the Chinese for 99 years of lease to build the port over there, to do the business by using the Tulagi port. So it is a very concerning events that is actually unveiling through these documents. The Chinese are investing heavily on the Pacific Island nation since Xi Jinping became president of China. The China has always had a presence in the South Pacific region. The ethnic Chinese has resided in that region for centuries. The China-Taiwan rivalry for diplomatic allies in that region has resulted in some sort of jockeying through the briefcase diplomacy between the two regions for decades. The China has been steadily and significantly scaling up their trade with this region since 2006. The Chinese has already beaten Australia in doing bilateral trade in that region since 2013. For Solomon Islands, the two-way trade with China now makes up 46% of all trades. The Chinese has dramatically scaled up its aid activity. Between 2006 to 2017, China provided almost $1.7 billion foreign aid to almost all Pacific Island countries. Their foreign aid is the mixture of the grants and loans. The Chinese are the third largest donor in the Pacific Island nations. They are contributing 8% of all foreign aid to the region between 2011 to 2017. They are also building infrastructure projects which are being funded by the controversial loans and the concessional loans. The Chinese lending has been used as a vehicle to get the Chinese state-owned enterprises in that region. So the Chinese are already doing something. Those are putting this region in the risk basket. The question is, why China's rise risking the Pacific region? The China's rise is putting everyone in risk, every region in risk. That includes the Indian Ocean region too. The China's debt trap diplomacy already destroyed Sri Lankan and Pakistan's economy. And India is affected because of this kind of devastated economical conditions in its neighbor. And India is doing everything to save the Sri Lankan economy and every other economy in that region. The Chinese view on Solomon Island is that they are doing the things without any strategic interest. This is an out loud lie, because the Chinese are very good in lying. Now our work is to pointing out what are the risk tactics the Chinese are really working on. The Chinese are really, whatever the risk tactics because of the Chinese investment in the Solomon Island will going to be faced by the countries in that region. The first risk is the Chinese are trying to establish the military base in the Pacific region to beat the American influence in this region. The America have important military bases in the Pacific. The two most important bases are Guam and Hawaii. And Solomon Island is 3075 km and 5845 km away from Guam and Hawaii respectively. The second risk is Australia. The Australia's security importance will be compromised if the Chinese would have its navy presence in the Solomon Island, because the Solomon Island is only 1500 km away from the Australian northern portions approximately. The main thing is that the nations are not pawn, the Pacific nations are not pawn on anyone's hands. They are fiercely protecting and protective about their nation's sovereignty. Sometimes the leadership behavior by the Australia or the New Zealand pushing them into the Chinese camp. So Australia and the New Zealand leaders have to behave with the Pacific Island the kind of an ally. They have to treat this nation as their ally, not someone who will going to give them the help at the time of the danger, at the time of their need. They have to treat these Pacific nations as their ally. Only then they will be able to keep those nations in their flock. China is simply trying to protect its own interest whichever the way is possible. China has already invested huge amounts of money in the Pacific Island nations. So they will going to protect their investment whichever the way is possible. The South Pacific region is rich in natural resources. And China's investment has provoked worries in US and Australia that the projects could give Beijing an opening to establish a military foothold for everything from ships and planes to its own version of the GPS. After Solomon Islands cut the deal with Taipei, the next Pacific nation, Kiribati, followed suit the same week. The China has put almost all Pacific countries under Belt and Road Initiative, which somehow raised eyebrow, because BRI is a Chinese policy or projects to capture the nation's asset by giving them the loans, at a huge interest rates. The China already gave the loans to some countries. They have defaulted on their loans and they have captured the projects that on which the Chinese business were working on, the Chinese investments was working on. Chinese captured the Sri Lankan Hambantota port. They captured the Gwadar port because both of these countries have failed to return the Chinese money. The world have to look at the China the way India do. The Chinese are basically land grabber. They grab the land by any means. They tried to capture the India's eastern Ladakh region, but they simply failed because India used aggression for the Chinese invasion. So the world have to shift their focus simply to the Indo-Pacific region from Europe, because the China's rise will going to put the American dominance in jeopardy. If the Americans lose the Pacific, then whole world will going to face some kind of repercussions for that. So the Solomon Island deal really have to deal with caution. That's why US is sending its high level delegation in Solomon Island, Papua New Guinea and the Fiji. Now we have reached our today's question. The first question is, East Timor, which was seen in the news, was recognized by the UN in which year? The first option is 1982, second option is 1992, third option is 2002, fourth option is 2012. The second question is, where is the WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine located in India? The first option is Mumbai, second option is Varanasi, third option is Jamnagar, fourth option is Kochi. So this is the end of the topic. If anyone have any question regarding this topic or any other topic that I have already uploaded, you can question me. You can ask me any kind of question through my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.